Hebrews 2:17. For this reason, he had to be made like them, fully human in every way, in order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God, and that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. This, to me, is very important. First of all, this idea, for this reason, what was the reason? Because Jesus is superior to all. The wording to me is interesting. For this reason, he had to be made like them. Fully human in every way. In order that he might become a merciful and faithful high priest in service to God. Now, the high priest was the highest office in Judaism. I said this last time, by the time Jesus came along, the high priest, that office was political, and maybe more political than anything else. Notice that the Hebrew writer says he might become a merciful and faithful high priest. This is in contrast to the, in my estimation, generations of high priests that were neither merciful nor faithful. And certainly by the time Annas and Caiaphas were on the scene, mercy and faithfulness had departed. And that he might make atonement for the sins of the people. Atonement is actually, most of Jewish theology revolves around the idea of atonement. And before Jesus, for a Jew, atonement was made by a blood sacrifice. The animal, the particular sacrifice is prescribed in the law, would have been a lamb without blemish, the firstborn lamb, or a calf or an ox, all without blemish. These were to be sacrificed in a prescribed manner at a time, in a place, and all revolved around the temple. So it stands to reason that Jesus, as a merciful and faithful high priest, would make atonement for the sins of the people, and he did it as the perfect Lamb of God. That word atonement is, I've read and heard, at-one-ment, meaning two parties that had previously been separated, even antagonistic, had become reunited, had become one. The only way that could happen was through a sacrifice. And Jesus was the perfect sacrifice to make atonement for the sins of the people. Okay, all that is, yeah. I mean, there's nothing weird or even hard to understand. Then it goes on in verse 18, because he himself suffered when he was tempted, he is able to help those who are being tempted. So, if Jesus hadn't been tempted, he wouldn't be able to help us? That doesn't seem consistent. I mean, there's a kind of a gap of logic there. Here's what I think. I think Jesus became a man. He experienced the human condition for himself, but not because he wouldn't have known it in any other way. He was God. There's nothing that God doesn't know and fully understand. See, God does not discover anything. He creates, he permits, he causes, but he's never discovering anything because he already knows it all. This is so far past our ability to understand, but it's significant in this, and here's why. So why did Jesus suffer when he was tempted? Was it so that he is able to help those who are being tempted? In this way is my belief. I think Jesus, because he is God, I'll say it again, he didn't have to experience and suffer temptation in order to be able to empathize fully with us in our temptations. So why? My thought is, he didn't do it to learn anything for himself. He did it to provide me with confidence. Because, and this is just me, but I know, yeah, Jesus knows everything. He's God. And yet there's this more powerful thing that when I realize he wanted me to know that he knows. And that's why he suffered temptation. I think we tend to maybe not for you, but for a lot of people, we tend to, when we think about Jesus was tempted to that 40-day period after his baptism when he was out in the wilderness. And at the end of those 40 days, what we get is a glimpse into what I think would have not been the only temptations that Jesus would have experienced, but we see the 3 temptations of Jesus. Don't you think he was tempted in other ways at other times that we don't know about? I mean, I do. That's part of the human experience. This temptation thing is not one and done. Anyway, it hasn't ever been for me. So, Jesus was tempted for our sake, so that we would know that he can and does. He's able to help us when we're being tempted. Okay. So moving on to chapter 3. Therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, he's narrowed it down. This is not just people in general. This is people who have said yes to Jesus and put their faith in him on his terms. So, therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, that's salvation. Fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. Fix your thoughts on Jesus. It's not an original thought for me to say your mind is the battlefield, and Satan is always working to hinder, to keep you, if he can, from thinking well. So what I'll just share with you what he tends to get to me with. One big one is finances. I'm a worrywart. God has never not provided for me, but I worry. The other is the health and happiness and wholeness of my family. I worry about that. When I was in ministry full time, getting paid for it in churches, it was about early on in my life, it was how do I solve problems these people have that they bring to me. Later on, I realized how do I help them discover how to solve these problems that can be solved and live with problems that cannot be solved. And there's more, but you know what it all comes back to? For me, worry. When I fix my eyes on worry, on all the things that could go wrong or have gone wrong, guess where it's really hard to fix my gaze? On Jesus. I've told you this before, but I daily, just about daily, I pray that prayer that the father of the demon-possessed boy, when Jesus, Peter, James, and John came down from the Mount of Transfiguration, brought his boy and asked Jesus to heal him and cast out the demon. And Jesus said, "If I can." And the man said, "I believe. Help me with my unbelief." That's me. I believe. Help me with my unbelief. And one of the ways that God steps in to help me, I have to ask, okay? And then I have to be willing to look where he wants me to look, and that is fix my eyes on Jesus. Have you know what it is to fix your eyes on something? I'm going to just, but I'm going to kind of unpack that a little bit. First of all, you don't fix your eyes on something with a glance. You fix your eyes on something by narrowing your focus and holding that focus. When I fix my eyes on Jesus, how do I do that? Well, some people would tell you that this is the value of icons, the statues of Jesus and the crucifixes with him on the cross and stained glass and the Stations of the Cross. And I know it's probably not a popular Protestant thought, but I don't have a problem with that. I think the intention of that is to draw my gaze so that I would fix it on Jesus. For me, one of the ways that I can fix my eyes on Jesus is to remember his life. And I don't have a very good memory, so I read it over and over and over again. To think deeply, fix my thoughts on Jesus. Okay, you can only fix your eyes on whatever you know of Jesus. So my challenge is, don't stop learning about Jesus. Not what somebody else says about him, not what I say about him, but read the Gospels. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Because if my eyes are on Jesus, guess where they can't also be? On my worries. It's not easy, but it's simple. See you next time on So Care with Stevie.